The moment I saw the charge on my phone, I had to sit down. Not because I was tired, because my legs just stopped working. It was a Tuesday evening, sometime after 7, and I was standing in my kitchen cutting up a cantaloupe when the notification came through. Delta Airlines. 2 tickets. Business class. Phoenix to Cancun. $4,240. I set down the knife. My son had called me 3 days earlier asking if he could use my card just for a few days, while he waited on a direct deposit to clear. He'd done it before. Small things, a tank of gas, groceries, once when his card got flagged for fraud. I never thought much about it. He was my son. You don't think much about trusting your own child. I put the cantaloupe in the refrigerator and sat at the kitchen table for a long time without moving. I should tell you a little about who I am, so you understand how something like this could happen to a woman my age. A woman who has, by every reasonable measure, been around long enough to know better. My name is June. I'm 63 years old. I live alone in a 2-bedroom house in Tucson, Arizona, that I've owned since 1997. My husband passed away 8 years ago, heart attack, very sudden, no warning at all. And since then, it has just been me and the routines I built to keep myself sane. Coffee at 6:30, a walk before the heat sets in, church on Sundays, dinner with my son and his wife most Friday nights, or so I thought. My son, I'll call him my son because that's what he is. That's the only role that matters in this story. Is 34. His wife, who I had welcomed into this family with open arms from the first day he brought her home, is 31. They have been married 4 years. They live about 20 minutes from me, which I always thought was a blessing. I am not a wealthy woman. I want to be clear about that. I have a modest pension from 31 years working in hospital administration, Social Security, and savings that I am careful with because I know they have to last. I am not the kind of mother who writes blank checks, but I am the kind of mother who says yes when her child needs help. Because that is what you do. That is what I was raised to do, and I never questioned it. The credit card I gave my son temporary access to had a $9,000 limit. I had about $100 on it already, some medical copays from earlier in the year, a new water heater in February. I checked it about once a month when the statement came. That, as it turned out, was a mistake I am still learning to forgive myself for. The direct deposit my son mentioned never came up again after I gave him the number. I didn't follow up. I told myself it was fine, that he would tell me when he was done using it, that I raised him to be responsible. 2 weeks went by, then 3. When I thought about it, I pushed the thought aside, the way you push aside things that make you uneasy when you don't yet have proof. It was the airline notification that broke that open. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my banking app. Something I should have been doing every week, I know that now. And I scrolled through 6 weeks of charges that I had not seen. I read them slowly, the way you read something you hope you're misunderstanding. A resort hotel in Scottsdale. 3 nights, $1,870. A spa service, $340. A steakhouse I recognized. It's the kind of place people go for anniversaries, the kind with a pre-fixie menu and a wine list that starts at $80 a bottle. Charged twice, 2 different Saturdays, once for $430 and once for $510, and once for $510. A designer boutique at Fashion Square Mall, $735. A car service to and from the airport, $220. And now the flights. Business class to Cancun, $4,240. The total, when I added it up on a piece of paper because I needed to see it written in my own handwriting, was $8,395. I sat there until it got dark outside. I did not call him that night. I was not ready. I needed to understand what I was looking at before I opened my mouth, because I have learned in 63 years that saying the wrong thing in the wrong moment can close a door permanently, and I was not ready to close any doors yet. I still believed, sitting at that table in the dark, that there was some explanation, that there had to be. I called my bank first thing the next morning. I spoke with a fraud specialist named, well, it doesn't matter what her name was. She was patient and she was kind. And she walked me through every transaction, and she explained my options, and she set up real-time alerts on my account so that from that point forward, every charge over $25 would come straight to my phone within seconds. Then I called my neighbor Phyllis, who has been my closest friend since 1989, and I read her the list. She listened without interrupting, which is one of the things I love most about her. When I was done, she said, "June, you need to see those flights." I asked her what she meant. "Pull up the reservation," she said. "See if they've already used them." I hadn't thought of that. I went back into my email. The card is linked to my account, so the confirmation had come to me, and I opened the Delta booking. Departure this Saturday. 4 days away, outbound and return already checked in. My son was taking his wife to Cancun in 4 days, on my money, in business class, and I had not been told a single word about it. I need to tell you about something that happened the Friday before I found all of this. My son had called that week to cancel our usual Friday dinner. His wife wasn't feeling well, he said. Something she ate, he thought. He sounded normal on the phone. Easy, relaxed, the voice of someone who isn't thinking about anything except the ordinary details of a Thursday afternoon. I told him not to worry. I hoped she felt better. I'd see them next week. I made soup that Friday. Just for myself. I watched the news and went to bed early. And now here I was, 4 days later, looking at a checked-in flight to Mexico and a hotel reservation in Scottsdale for the weekend she had supposedly been too sick to come to dinner. $1,870, 3 nights, checked out on a Sunday, and a spa charge that same Saturday she was sick. I went back through my phone. I scrolled through 3 months of texts from my son, reading them with different eyes now. The way you reread a letter when you know the ending. Busy weekend. Rough week at work. We're just going to stay in. I'm waiting on some money to move. Can I use your card for a few days? He had asked to use my card 4 separate times in 3 months. I had said yes all 4 times. I closed my phone and walked outside and stood in my backyard for a while. The desert was quiet the way it gets in early morning, before the birds start. I thought about his father. I thought about what his father would have said standing next to me in that yard, looking at the same sky. I thought my son knew better. I thought I had shown him better. I did not call. I did not text. I made a decision that surprised even me. I booked myself on their flight. Not the same seats. I'm not a fool. And I wasn't trying to make a scene in the air at 35,000 feet. But the same flight, same day, a seat in coach because I wasn't going to spend what I didn't have to spend. And I paid for it with a different card, one my son had never touched. I wanted to see for myself. I needed to look at this with my own eyes. Not over a phone, not in a text argument where things get deleted and denied and twisted. I needed to see his face. I didn't tell Phyllis what I was doing. She would have talked me out of it. Or she would have come with me, which might have been worse. I packed a small carry-on. I did not sleep much Friday night. Saturday morning I was at the airport 2 hours early, and I sat at my gate with a coffee I couldn't taste and watched people flow past, families with strollers, couples with matching luggage. A group of college students who reminded me so much of my son at that age that I had to look away. They came through security 40 minutes before boarding. She was wearing a sundress I had never seen. White with yellow flowers, pretty, the kind of dress you buy for vacation. He had a new bag, one of those expensive soft-sided duffels that I now knew came from the boutique at Fashion Square. They were laughing about something, heads together, easy and happy, and they looked like every other couple heading somewhere warm for the weekend. They did not see me. I watched them walk to the business class lounge. I watched the door close behind them. I sat in my seat in coach and I opened my banking app and I looked at the current balance on the card my son had access to. There were 2 new charges from that morning I hadn't seen yet. A restaurant in the terminal, breakfast for 2, $94, and a lounge day pass, $85. I set spending alerts for any amount and I turned my phone face up on the tray table and I waited. We landed in Cancun 2 hours and 40 minutes later. I hung back at baggage claim and watched them get their luggage, checked bags, matching, also new as far as I could tell, and walked toward ground transportation. I gave them 10 minutes, then I got my own bag and went to the taxi line. I had looked up the resort already. I knew where they were staying because the charge on my card had the hotel's name on it, and a quick search told me exactly what kind of place it was. Oceanfront. All-inclusive. The kind of resort where you do not need to reach for your wallet for anything once you check in, because everything, food, drinks, pool service, activities, is already covered. Covered by me. I checked into a smaller hotel down the beach. It was perfectly fine. Clean, air-conditioned, a nice little balcony with a view of the water. Under different circumstances, I might have enjoyed it. I showered and changed and sat on that balcony for a while and thought carefully about what I wanted to do next. Here is what I did not want. A screaming argument on a resort deck in front of strangers. Tears and denial and the specific kind of performance that happens when someone is caught and knows it and decides that offense is better than admission. I did not want to be managed. Here is what I did want, the truth, said plainly in a moment he could not escape from. I waited until Sunday afternoon. I knew from the resort's website that they had a Sunday beachside brunch, open to day guests for a fee, the kind of lavish spread that goes on for 3 hours with live music and a Bloody Mary bar and tables set right at the edge of the sand. I purchased a day guest ticket that morning. I put on a sundress I'd packed, the yellow one I've had for years. I did my hair. I drove to the resort. I walked in through the open-air lobby and followed the sound of the music. I found them at a table for two near the water, halfway through brunch by the look of it. Champagne glasses in front of them, a plate of shrimp between them, the ocean behind them turning in the sun. She had her head thrown back laughing at something he'd said. He was refilling her glass from the bottle in the ice bucket. My card, my money, my $9,000 credit limit that I had worked for 31 years to have the right to carry. I walked to their table and I pulled out the empty chair and I sat down. The look on his face, I will carry it for a long time. Not guilt, not first. First it was shock, that complete whiteout of a person who has just seen something impossible. Then something scrambling, calculating, trying to find the version of this that ends without consequence. She went still in her chair. Neither of them said anything. I let the silence sit. Then I took out my phone and I opened the banking app and I turned it to face him and I said, I want you to look at this with me. He looked at the screen. He looked at my face. He looked back at the screen. Mum, he started. I'm not angry right now, I said, and it was true, which surprised me. I was not angry. I was past that. I was in the place on the other side of anger, which is quieter and a great deal more serious. I am going to ask you to explain this to me, and I need you to be honest, because I already know all of it. I just need to hear it from you. He tried. He tried several versions of an explanation, the way someone tries a door at different angles hoping one will open. It was his wife's birthday. They'd meant to pay me back. He tried to tell me, but the moment never felt right. He thought I wouldn't mind. I listened to all of it. Then I said, your father worked his whole life to build something stable for this family. I have worked since I was 22 years old. I'm 63 and I live alone, and I am careful with what I have because I do not have someone to fall back on the way you do. And you looked me in the eye and you took merely $8,500 from me, and you did not tell me. She started to cry. He looked at the tablecloth. I'm not going to yell at you, I said, and I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen. What I am going to do is remove you from that account today, and I'm going to need you to pay back what you spent. And we are going to have a very different kind of relationship going forward than the one we've been having, because the one we've been having clearly did not have the right foundation. I stood up. I hope you enjoy the rest of your trip, I said. You've already paid for it. I walked back through the lobby and out through the front entrance, and I stood in the parking lot for a moment in the heat. And then I opened my banking app and I removed his access to my account. The flight home was quiet. I had a window seat and I watched the Gulf of Mexico disappear beneath the clouds, and I thought about all the Fridays I had cooked dinner that he hadn't come to. All the phone calls where his voice had sounded perfectly normal while he was spending money. I didn't know he had. I thought about the version of my son I had believed in, and the version I had just sat across from at that table, and how much distance there was between the two. He texted me 3 times on the flight. I didn't read them until I landed. The first was defensive. The second was softer. The third said, "I know I can't make this right with words. I'm sorry, Mom. I really am." I read that one twice. I didn't respond right away. I drove home from the airport in the evening, when the light in Tucson goes that particular gold color it gets in summer, and I pulled into my driveway and I sat in the car for a minute before I went inside. The house was exactly as I'd left it. The cantaloupe I hadn't finished was still in the refrigerator. The piece of paper where I had added up the charges was still on the kitchen table. I threw the paper away. I called Phyllis and I told her everything, the whole trip from the airport to the resort to the drive home, and she listened to all of it without saying "I told you so," which is exactly why she has been my best friend for 35 years. When I was done, she asked me how I felt. I thought about it for a moment. "Tired," I said, "but not broken." That felt true. It has been 6 weeks since that Sunday in Cancun. My son and I have spoken twice. Real conversations, not the comfortable surface ones we used to have. They were harder than anything we had said to each other before. He has set up automatic payments to pay me back, his idea, not mine, and I will say that matters to me, that he offered it without being asked. His wife sent me a letter, handwritten, 3 pages, and I have read it several times and I have not decided yet what I think about it. I still don't give anyone access to my accounts. I check my statement every week now, Sunday mornings after church, 5 minutes with coffee at the kitchen table. It takes almost no time at all. I do not know why I did not do this sooner, except that trust is a kind of laziness sometimes, the comfortable way of not looking at things you'd rather not see. I think about what I would say to another woman my age. A woman who is generous with her children the way I was generous, who says yes because she loves them, who doesn't check the statements because she wants to believe she raised someone she doesn't need to check up on. I would tell her, check the statements, not because you don't trust your child, because you're the one responsible for what's yours. Because love and accountability are not opposites. Because the kindest thing you can do for someone who might be drifting toward a mistake is to make it impossible for them to make it quietly. I would tell her a relationship built on real honesty is smaller, but it holds weight. The Friday dinners have started again. We sit at the same table, the 3 of us. It is different now, less easy, more careful, with the specific quality of something that was broken and is being repaired without pretending the break didn't happen. That's all right. I've repaired things before. I know the difference between something that can hold again and something that can't. This one can hold. I have to believe that. He is still my son, and I am still his mother. That doesn't change. But I check the app every Sunday now, and I always will. I keep coming back to that Sunday morning in Tucson, standing in my backyard before any of it had fully landed, looking at the same sky my husband used to look at. There was nothing dramatic about the moment, just the quiet before the birds start and me standing there trying to figure out how I had let this happen. The honest answer is that I let it happen because I confused love with looking away. I told myself that checking on my son meant I didn't trust him, and that not trusting him meant I had somehow failed as a mother. So I looked away. I paid the bills without reading them. I said yes 4 times in 3 months without asking a single question. And every time I did that, I wasn't protecting him. I was protecting the idea of him I wanted to hold on to. What I've had to sit with is this. What my son did was wrong. There's no softer way to say it. He looked me in the eye and made a choice, more than once, over weeks, and he kept making it. That's not a mistake. A mistake is a single moment of bad judgment. What he did took planning. It took the specific kind of dishonesty that only works when someone trusts you completely. But I also have to be honest about my own part, not to let him off the hook. He is responsible for what he chose. But because I'm 63 years old and I still have things to learn about myself, and one of them is this: doing the right thing and doing the easy thing are not the same. And I had been choosing easy for a long time. Easy to say yes, easy not to look, easy to believe the version of my family that felt the most comfortable. What changed me, what really changed me, was not the money. It was sitting across from him at that table in Cancun and watching him try 5 different explanations in the space of 2 minutes and realizing that he had never expected to be held accountable. Not because he was a bad person at his core, but because I had never held him accountable before. I had always found a way to smooth it over, to absorb the cost, to keep the peace. That stops now. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. There's a kind of strength that only comes from being willing to see things as they are. Your child, your relationship, yourself, and not flinching away from what you find. I had to fly to Mexico to find mine. The payments are coming in. The conversations are harder and more honest than anything we've had before. My son is doing the uncomfortable work of being a grown man who made a serious mistake and has to live with the consequences of it. That, I think, is how character actually gets built. Not in the moments when everything goes right, but in the ones where you have to decide who you're going to be after it goes wrong. I check my account every Sunday now. 5 minutes, coffee, kitchen table. It took almost losing my financial footing to understand that taking care of what's mine is not a failure of generosity. It is what generosity requires. You cannot give from a place you have not protected. I still have the piece of paper where I added up the charges. I didn't throw it away after all. I kept it in my desk drawer, not to hold a grudge, but to remember what it cost me to stop looking away. Some lessons only come once. I intend to keep this one.